Hey there everybody, this is Admiral Newkirk. I'm going to be bringing you a game between GGZ Pucks, I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be said, but that's how I'm going to say it, and Empire Cost. It's going to be a TVZ cross-position Metalopolis. Oh, sorry about that, was leaning back. This is not going to be on the MLG map, and I believe this is just a public ladder game. Empire Cost is a sort of innovative Terran player. He does a little bit unusual stuff. He's not QXC unusual, because QXC is counterintuitive to a fault. The way QXC works is he goes, hey, I'm going to do something that doesn't make any sense at all, and thus you won't expect it at all. I'm going to do a marine push just before an upgrade finishes. That way, I'll only have the upgrade as soon as the push is over. But that means I get to exploit a timing where you were not prepared for it because it didn't make any sense. So QXC kind of metagames everyone and anything to a fault. Empire Cost plays a little bit more standard, does things that are just sort of the second standard, the option 1A. So while the standard Protoss versus Terran is Colossus Stalker, the 1A answer is Zealot, Templar, Archon, etc. And that's sort of how Cost works. He also happens to be part of the name, or part of the team with the coolest name. Let's face it, Empire is awesome. EG is close, but Empire is badass. GGZ Pucks, I don't really know much about, but again, he's playing Cost, so how can it be bad? A little bit of, I guess, housekeeping. I'm going to be bringing a lot of user games, because I've been getting quite a few lately. I mean, before I just got 1 or 2 ever. Now I've gotten like 6 this week. So I'm going to be casting a lot of them today. And hopefully I can bring them to you, the viewers, because I know you guys love to see your games casted. For those of you who don't know, I actually cast every single game blind. I obviously know who's playing it, but I don't actually watch the games beforehand, because I think then my own reaction is better. It's more interesting to hear me legitimately not knowing what's going to happen. So thus, if I don't upload your game, it's not because I didn't see your game. I'm going to watch every single game you guys send me. The only reason I won't upload your game is going to be if it's not really worth uploading. But don't worry, every single game I receive, I do watch. So now we see Cost throwing down a Tech Lab. This screams to me Reaper opening because he hasn't taken his second gas. And throwing down the Tech Lab before, say, a factory means no Blue Flame Hellion, which, by the way, is my personal favorite opener. So this is either a Reaper opening or an interesting Marauder play or just really fast stim. And look at that Reaper opening. At this point, GGZ Pucks, which is really fun to say, GGZ Pucks. I might cast this game Korean style, which involves a lot of screaming. Oh, DCV, it's in the middle line. I don't know if that was racist or not, certainly hope it wasn't. GGZ Pucks is spawning his queen, and he's spawning a second queen. He's not going to do what's normally done, which is make a queen, put down a creep tumor, move on to your expansion. He's instead going to make both queens simultaneously. I don't think this is a bad play, I just think it's a different play. We see an SCV trying to escape from 4 Zerglings, and we see a nice dog statue. It's a wolf statue now. Empire Cost now getting a factory. It looks like he's going to go this interesting mech style 1 Reaper into mech play, which is generally very strong. However, I wouldn't suggest doing it. It's a good, interesting opener, just don't do it, because pros can get away with something like this a lot of the time because it kills so many workers, but it doesn't actually leave you with that much stuff. So going this crazy harassment opener, this is what I did like back in November of Season 1, I would open Hellions, double Blue Flame Hellion, get them in a good position here, move a single Reaper into the main. Generally that got like 16 probe kills. That was like my average. Then I would be transitioning into Banshees. And yeah, it works. But the moment somebody decides, well, wait a minute, I just made 30 roaches, might as well go kill him. The moment that happens, you die. And so I would suggest choosing a single harassment opener, and it looks like Kaz is doing that. He's just now transitioning. He has his 3rd command center going up really fast. He's not yet taken his second gas. This Reaper has killed 6 things, which is a really cost-effective Reaper. And the best part about Reapers is they're such great scouts. I would suggest getting mid and late game Reapers, just like 1 at a time, because you can jump up into the base and get a look at it, and you don't have to waste a scan or a mule. So Koss is going to know that he's done more than enough harassment with this one Reaper. He's done tons of scouting as well, and thus he can just transition directly into Tank Marine, the general standard style. This is the reason I like watching Koss play. A, because he has an awesome name, Empire Koss, and B, because he does these cool little openers that transition into strong mid-games. We now see GG Zeepux getting his second and third gas, not his fourth gas. If you see fourth gas, that immediately screams Mutalisks. You can actually kind of support Infestors off 3. It's not great, you won't get a lot of them, but you can be done. But Mutas off of 3 gas is just, it's a sad sight. And here comes the fourth gas down, so that means either Mutas or Infestors. 3 gas would probably be a Roachling play. We see Koss throwing down 2 more barracks, as well as having his 3rd command center. And a factory. He has not yet researched anything but siege mode and just Marines. So this is a really safe, very lean opener. That's good. He gets this Reaper out, he does good scouting, but he doesn't actually, and the Reaper dies with, I don't know how many kills, probably 7. He gets the Reaper out, but then he just transitioned in. This is really lean. He has a lot of room to play here. He's got a lot of room to work with depending on what the Zerg does. So he's going to do double upgrades. Decision I never think is bad. I will never say double upgrades is a bad decision. You should be spending your gas on something else, because as long as your units are more cost effective, you can always do more than you should, and more cost effective units win you games. So we see now that GG Zeepux is taking his 3rd. Koss has his 3rd command center, but appears to be using it just to make workers a little bit faster. He still only has 1 factory, 3 barracks, and 1 starport is on the way. He has not yet gotten stim or combat shield, an interesting choice. We see GG Zeepux just now getting up his 3rd, which I may have already said. We see him making Holy Banelings Batman, 10 of them. He's moving out his Overlords now, because, hey, we need to have an Overlord party. We see an Evo Chamber going down, and a Spire. So he's going to be going Zergling, Baneling, Mutalisk against the good old Tank Marine Medevac. These 2 styles are somewhat old right now, I would say. TVZ is right now more Infestor mech play, at least from what I've seen the pros doing. Somebody like Goody, who always does mech, but at the same time, even Koreans, we're starting to see them go a little bit less on the tank marine style. Not, of course, MMA, but somebody like MVP isn't making as many Marines and is instead making a few more Hellions. And so Tank Marine, I'm not saying it's out of date, I'm saying that Tank Marine Ling Bling Muta is something that was very, it was the absolute prevalence from November on until about May, and then it's most recently been like Infestor Roach versus Mech. Those have they've been the 2 biggest styles. Look at somebody like Goody having a bunch of success. We see Koss doing something very interesting. Because of the super early 3rd command center that he didn't then move out, he just used it to make extra workers. He's capable of taking his 3rd at a very strong timing, around the time the Zerg has his, Zerg of course taking his 4th, but at the same time not having to take a huge risk about it. This is a really cool play, and I would consider working this into your own play. We see some Zerglings about to move in. We see +1 air attack coming down, as well as an infestation pit. We might see a super fast hive and potentially a super fast greater spire coming down. 2 Mutalisks are on the way. It looks like he won't be going into the mass muta route of somebody like Idra. Some great building placement here by Koss. Ugh, I love it when players do this. You want to put your buildings around the edge of your base. Yes, it means that somebody with a big, say, bio army can come along and snipe it, but along this edge, no Zerg can drop a Nidus Worm here. It's hard to move in Overlords. You putting those buildings clumped up in the middle of your base doesn't accomplish anything, and this is a good way to accomplish something. A drop there doing... oh, look at that. The drop did probably 28 damage. Exactly. Now, there aren't yet enough mutas to shut down drops, but holy mutas, Batman, I'm completely wrong. Wow, should I not make claims like that? The mutas completely consuming the drop, and that's pretty much the most significant casualties of the game since the Reaper. We see now this tank valiantly standing there. Yeah, 2 kills. I'm awesome. Oh, I am the baller tank. No, nobody's better than me. We see a Marine drop over here that will die nigh immediately to Mutalisks. Oh, he did lose 1 muta. Still, trading a medevac for a muta is an even trade, and any extra Marines you get is just candy. So, yes, this badass siege tank, let's call him Rory. Rory hanging out by the missile turret. Yeah, I'm a baller. Ugh. Such a stud siege tank. This is decent tank placement. I don't like these two without this many Marines, because when you know there are a bunch of mutas out on the field, they could just rip you to shreds. Now, this is the slight issue of putting all these buildings really at extraneous positions around the map, is that it can mean they can pretty easy to snipe by air units, such as Banshees. But that's why you get a lot of turrets as Terran, unless you're going something like Mech for Thors. We now see continued attempts at drop by Koss, and this is the one issue I have with this play, this Tank Marine play, and this is the reason I tend not to do it, is drops are an absolute necessity to allow you to both be safe, which tanks in siege mode and Marines next to the tanks, they are both a necessity if you want to be safe in your base. So thus you need drops in order to be at all aggressive. But the moment there are mutas out, which if somebody's going this Tank Marine style, mutas are the most likely unit to be out, it's really hard to go out and do drops, and you sort of have to accept a loss in your drop if you want to be able to do it. You have to resign yourself to lose 900, 100, pardon me, 500, 100 if you want to be able to do anything. Because look, that drop was a sacrificial drop. It didn't actually do anything, but it was just there to free up time and space for this drop. And then you can't even retreat with these drops. And so basically, when you have this many Mutalisks out, it's hard to impose any aggression as Terran, because you have to, you are essentially, you're making an investment. The point of drops is that you can go, snipe a couple of drones, then run away. That's what's great about drops. But when mutas are out, you can't do that. You just have to go in and you have to sacrifice a few Marines for